There we go. So if there is anyone who is in session whose name is not shown on the screen, please unmute your microphone or let me know you're here so we can include your name in the record of participation. What I'd like to share with you today is the roadmap that we will use to engage the material in our textbook. And what you'll notice online as we get into our these module names will be changed to reflect what's shown here. Over the weekend, I spent time working on tech infrastructure, specifically cloud-based systems that you can access remotely for some of our activities. And I've also had a chance to kind of map out, based on our decision on Friday. We decided as a class on Friday that we were going to pursue the last component of essential cybersecurity in the network forensics context, network forensics context, which is availability. We said that availability was kind of like a red-headed stepchild and was often addressed as an afterthought. It's not as sexy or as engaging as active threats in the environment. So when it comes to confidentiality and integrity breaches, those usually steal the headlight. You know, those are usually in the headlights. They usually steal the headlines. The problem is that there are very practical measures that we can take and use to address availability issues, beginning with how we stage or provision the network environment. So again, if you're joining us in progress, the module topics that you see listed here will be posted in place of what was originally planned. And there's a slight change of order in the progression. So we'll begin in the textbook with chapter 2 of the textbook. And then we'll, in module 2, address host side matters, chapter 1 and chapter 3. In module 3, it'll be exploits and the network environment. In module 4, it'll be preparation for analysis and intrusion detection systems. Module 5 will be a deep dive on log analysis and essentially collaborating between system logs and device logs, the process of a higher level search and analysis. And then our final module will be kind of a capstone on the finer points of network forensics, and we'll be doing some pretty heavy scanning. Now, in order to scan in the network, there are quick and easy tools, but the kind of Wireshark scanning we need will require a bit of preparation. And with that in mind, what we've been working on, I just thought I would show and share with you. We've established an open source VPN method. Can everyone see my screen? Can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, we'll update this. So what I've done is connected to a site in the US mainland. And what I'm going to do at this point is, within that encrypted tunnel, use remote desktop to connect to a virtual system host. This virtual system host will allow us to explore. Please work, please work, please work. will allow us to explore an enterprise domain environment. So by the time we get to the later modules in the course, what you'll find is that the later modules in the course will transition into a workplace environment. And essentially, this host is going to operate and provide access to server machines in that environment. Each of you will have your own machine in order to be able to conduct your own Wireshark activities. Now, unless we define the network environment, one of the things that is an early issue, and by the way, if you're going to be working with virtual machines, one thing I'd like to ask you to do, and this is, I'm going to say this over and over again, we had another host that was down for the weekend, and we found out that one of our students from this summer doing independent research shut down the system instead of signing off. Not sure what was going on there, but we want to sign out of a remote connection. We don't just want to chop the connection. If you disconnect the connection, if you disconnect, what will happen is that your login will remain active and it'll prevent somebody else from, gaining access. So in any case, these are just finer points that we're going to show more and share more later in the season. But we did get the rest of the kinks out for that machine. Let's talk about the author. Your author, before we do that, inside module 1, I did post. So after we post the main topics, I'll populate the learning outcomes here from chapter 2, the reading in chapter 2. But these are active assignments for this week. So I want to call your attention to validating the authentic, that you've obtained. You've either purchased or rented an authentic textbook. That's due tonight at 11:59 p.m. That deadline was extended a bit because we didn't have it out there. That's already in place. We need you to go out to the Microsoft software downloads and provide a copy of both the standard and the data center activation code for your licenses for the class so that we can use those on the virtual platform. I've posted an independent assignment that I'd like you to have done by 1 p.m. today. So this is we're going to peel off from the class early. We'd like to give you some time to check out a quick article. We'll talk about that in a minute. By the time we start our class on Wednesday, you should be nearing completion of your own personal technology. You should have worked customary maintenance and optimization with that assignment. And then basically what we're going to do with our solution is roll up our sleeves and address practical availability issues in the home network environment. So to put that into context, if we go into our textbook, the introduction is worth reading, by the way. So this is something that I would encourage you to take the time to read. The author explains that history repeats itself. The tools are always changing, but it's the principles behind the tools that are more important. And so that perspective is actually quite valuable so that you'll understand that we're going to frame the course not around the latest, greatest tool set, but around the principles of networking. So he explains that Ethernet worked in the early 1980s. And if you looked at a frame of the Ethernet traffic today, you can still understand exactly what's happening. Ethernet was developed in the 70s, but when you look at Wi-Fi, you're still using some aspect of Ethernet to provide the Wi-Fi, right? So at some point in the connectivity of the network, that's still in the mix, right? So over the years, this is a person who has legacy experience like myself. We went from coax to twisted pair to optical to wireless. I was actually involved in an implementation of a broadband network in higher education, actually public education, where they were rolling out a new network for students to use on the internet. We had dial-up modems, but the network was made with it was called ThinNet. It was thin coax, 10 base 2, and that was before we ever had twisted pair Ethernet connections, right? So I was actually a part of this process here. So I have some history, and it's going to be helpful to you to understand the perspective of the author, because it's also something I share with that author, right? So he talks about how forensics has been glorified in the TV, but that there are some important distinctions to make. I don't want to spoil it for you, but I do want to call out that one of the things we want you to cover first in our first module is chapter 2, right? We want to make a refresher of our networking concepts, and we want to do it quickly but efficiently, and that's because we're going to be referring to some specific concepts and methods over and over again, and we don't need to assume that we all remember what's going on in, what we did so long ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago in CSC 243 and networking and digital communications. So that's what's the required reading for this module. And so what we're going to do is make sure that the essential protocols are reviewed so you understand what they are and how they work, the basics of TCP/IP and the difference. And that's a really good refresher. Any questions so far?
Nope.
All right then. So if you've taken the time to email me an artifact about your textbook, the acquisition of your textbook, please load it into here, okay? Does everybody know where to look up your license activation? Is that something we should, I think we've done this in previous classes before.
Yeah, we have.
Okay. And would any of you object if we didn't have an article review this year?
Not at all.
Not at all. No objections.
Oh, okay. That said, could I get you to do some lighter assignments like this one on the flipper? Have we talked about the flipper?
I believe we mentioned it
Before.
I think we mentioned it last week, right? So here's the link. What I want you to do is to read the article. It's a short article, right? And then essentially, I just want you to share some quick thoughts about it. In particular, what impresses or concerns you the most. That could read "and or concerns you the most." Just use some quick complete sentences and enter these directly using the handy option. So when I say enter them directly, what I mean is you have the opportunity to create a submission, right? And that's going to open up a window where you can type in your answers directly, okay? And just as long as they're complete thoughts and appropriate grammar, though, we're fine. Any questions about this assignment? Okay.
No.
Well, I'm not going to read to you chapter 2. I think you're at a point in a 400 level class as juniors and seniors. I think you got that cold. What I would like to do at the start of our class on Wednesday, and by the way, I don't know if you saw the notice, but essentially we'll be conducting classes on Monday and Wednesday and as live Zoom sessions, but on Friday we're going to have it's going to be a hands-on workshop. So you want to be ready and come prepared on Friday, because we'll be talking about your solution. And one of the things we want to do is to improve the availability of your home network. That said, if you don't have access to your Wi-Fi router, if you don't know how to log in to the service provided router, if you lack the capacity in your own home network to, what you want to do is make sure that when you join the class that you have those screens ready to go, so we can kind of investigate those things and make changes together. Okay, so by the time we hit class on Friday, you'll have the solution out there in the module, and you'll know what's expected and how to be ready. So I want to demonstrate some things on Friday, and then I want you to demonstrate. I want you to share your screens. We're going to be picking names randomly. So this is one thing where if you don't have your personal technology optimized, if you're not set for that hands-on workshop, it's going to tell on you. This Friday is not a good day to be driving while you're listening to the class on your smartphone. Does everyone understand the expectations for Friday and Fridays in general? Anyone? Questions? Going once, going twice. Okay, so we said we would be closing out of our class on time, and this week we're going to do it. This concludes our session.